Hello there. Long live the Empire, and welcome to the channel. This is Nerd World. Today, we're doing the Mirror Universe Sulu. Character biography, what lore we know on the character, what is his story. Now, there isn't much on him other than what we see in Mirror Mirror, but that he does appear in a lot of beta canon, some of it's interesting, so I'll take some of that with a pinch of salt, as it's never been retconned. It could be true, so we'll go with that. His life in Starfleet, his life career, his rise and fall. We've got the Mirror Universe Sulu. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. And now, let's get started. In the year 2267, Hikaru Sulu was a lieutenant aboard the Imperial starship, the ISS Enterprise, under the command of Captain James Tiberius Kirk. He had formerly served under the command of Captain Pike, who Kirk would assassinate. By proxy, Sulu was somewhat not complicit in this, but sort of could have prevented it. A number of years earlier, before the events of the crossover Mirror Mirror, him and Kirk had been ordered to the cargo bay where a vessel had docked with the Enterprise and was offloading cargo. This was an Orion ship. While they were offloading the cargo, Kirk and Sulu noticed that one of the containers they were offloading was a little light. When they banged on the drum, it seemed hollow. Kirk pulled out its phaser and pointed at the Orion captain. Sulu at the time was distracted by Orion slave girls that had disembarked from the ship, and the captain was busy explaining how those slaves belonged to another person and he was going to be dropping them off at his next stop-off. Kirk demands to see the contents of this container, opens it, tumbles it out and finds that there is a false compartment in the bottom containing illegal weapons. The captain is then ordered to explain himself, and he says that he basically claims ignorance. And he offers the slave girls as compensation. He says, you can keep those 3 slave girls and I'll be on my way. No harm, no foul. Kirk agrees to this condition. Him and Sulu keep the slave girls and the captain's allowed to leave with the illegal weapons, with Kirk mentioning that you're lucky we're letting you leave with your life. What Sulu was unaware is what was actually smuggled in the other containers were the components for the Tantalus field, the weapon that Kirk would use to assassinate Pike and maintain order and control aboard his ship like a little mini tyrant. Sulu, if he hadn't been distracted by the Orion slave girls, might have noticed this if he'd inspected the other containers. But alas, he did not. Under Kirk, he was promoted to lieutenant and made chief security and helm officer, and was 3rd in command of the ship after himself and Commander Spock. Now, fast forward again to 2267, and several individuals from our universe cross over into the Mirror Universe, and vice versa. Kirk, Uhura, and others. Now, Uhura is important because Sulu has something of an infatuation with her. He's been obsessed with her and been basically trying to get into her pants for years, and she's been rebuffing him. And she uses that as a distraction, once again, with Sulu, to allow the Prime Universe Kirk to go about his business trying to get back to his main universe. But in the meantime, Kirk had ordered a stay on the planetary bombardment of the Hulkan race, who had defied the Empire, and this was unacceptable. Now, initially the crew went along with this, even though it was generally against protocol. Kirk probably knew what he was doing. We'll see what happens. But when Starfleet got wind of it, and other crew members such as Chekhov realized that Starfleet Command would be unhappy with Kirk's behavior, which was undermining the authority of the Empire, he attempted to usurp command, get Spock put in charge, and get a promotion in the process himself. Now, his coup failed. Sulu remained loyal to Kirk. But then the orders came through from Starfleet Command directly to Mr. Spock, telling him to remove Kirk from command and perform the planetary bombardment on the Hulkans and exact Imperial authority over them, as Kirk was now in defiance of Imperial standing orders. Which basically means he was showing cowardice and he was no longer worthy of command, and the Admiralty had decided that Spock should take over and Kirk should be removed. Sulu and a little posse went to confront him to back up Spock. Now this failed, with Marlene, the captain's woman, using the Tantalus device to get rid of Sulu's little posse. And then allowed Kirk to transport back to his home universe, and he planted the seed in Spock's head about the whole, the Empire's bad idea, blah blah blah, lead to its fall. Now, when the main universe Kirk comes back, Spock takes the opportunity to remove the captain because Starfleet Command's none the wiser about this whole crossover, so he assassinates him, although eventually Starfleet would learn of it, not before Spock achieved greater power and they basically blocked all transportation between universes. Sulu would later be promoted under Spock and eventually even be promoted to the rank of captain and be given command of the ISS Excelsior. And that's where again we get into a lot more non-canon with this character, mostly from the game's Shattered Universe, where in that universe where Sulu basically, he was now the captain of his own ship. He'd been promoted effectively, as far as we can tell, the right way. He hadn't advanced through rank by killing his commanding officers like some officers like Kirk had done. He actually got there through tenacity and being loyal. His command was a reward. Unfortunately, he was a Terran and the power went to his head, and he decided that he was going to stage a little coup. Now, this coup was an utter disaster. It didn't even advance his position within Starfleet. It was just an utter failure. And then Starfleet sent the now Captain Chekhov after him. Chekhov, who wanted him dead because he'd not been asked to participate in the coup, who he felt, you'd asked me to help, maybe we would have succeeded, went after him with a vengeance. But there was another crossover event with the main universe Sulu and the main universe USS Excelsior. When the Prime Universe Sulu encountered the Mirror Universe Chekhov, who was in command of the ISS Enterprise A, they made a deal to basically capture Sulu. Now, in the Janus Vortex, which was basically this big mess that had caused it in the first place, the two Excelsiors went to battle. The Prime Universe Sulu detonated a dilithium warhead of some description, which catapulted both vessels back into their respective universes, and this likely resulted in Chekhov getting his man, capturing or destroying the ISS Excelsior and therefore Sulu, as there's nothing more of him in those particular continuities. So we can assume at that point he was killed, possibly along with his ship. Now, you can see how he went from a relatively loyal Terran officer under Pike to, you can see what very corrupting influence from Captain Kirk. The vessel launched in 2264 under Kirk to go on its first 5-year mission of exploration and conquest, because the Terrans did actually explore as well as conquer. They weren't stupid, they understood that science and knowledge were important too. Otherwise they never would have built their empire like they did. But he went under Kirk's tutelage to become an officer that once he reached a certain level of command, just like Kirk, he got ambitions way beyond his current station. But he's a fascinating character. It's not known how he got his scar, the distinctive scar on his face, which clearly could have been fixed with 23rd century medical technology he chose to keep, which indicates he probably got it in some kind of triumphal victory that he wanted to commemorate, or maybe he just thought it was cool. Either way, what did you think of Mirror Universe Sulu? Do you like him, hate him, is he pure out and out villain, because clearly he is? Comment down below, and like, subscribe, and bye bye.